Good morning, Yankee fans. This is the Pitchfork Chronicles. I am Tessa. I'm here with Donald and Rob, and we were able to see something that we never get to see anymore, and that is a complete game shutout from our ace, Garrett Cole. And watching him on the mound yesterday, it was just he took him to school. He took that offense. He just shut them down. After the first two games, it looked like the Cleveland offense was going to be a different look than what we've been expecting. So when
Minnesota,
what did I say? Cleveland?
Yeah.
Minnesota's offense that we've been able to kind of handle really well. We were able to get, kind of put them in their place and remind them where they were and took control of our house. So when you're watching an outing like that from Garrett Cole, who has just been on fire to start the season, what else can you say about the guy that he's just our ace and he's on a mission this year?
It's all about location. And he's keeping everything in the ballpark.
I mean, that actually has been the biggest factor, that he has not given up a long ball yet. I mean, it's going to happen, but we're not seeing it at the rate that we have seen it in the past, because that's been his Achilles heel, is the long ball. So the fact he's been able to keep the ball in the park, I think, is why he's had such a dominant start. And I think that is the key. Rob, what do you think?
I think he's pitching angry. He gets offended pretty easily. He has a lot of things to complain about in the past, and seeing his name not being on those top 10 lists, I guarantee you struck a chord in him, because this is still a guy who's getting paid one of the largest contracts in baseball history, especially for a pitcher. He's getting a lot of money, and we were very critical of him last year in the regular season, but playoff time came around, he was lights out. So the way he's pitching this year, I can't say enough about it. He's pitching angry. He's pitching quick. The pitch clock has worked wonders for him, and I just hope that it keeps going, because he's the guy that has to keep this rotation together. There's so many question marks right now until we get healthy, and Garrett Cole has been the ace, and he had a lot of pressure on him. Rodon gets hurt. Sevy gets hurt. We're relying on not 100% Nestor, even though he's been great so far, and a kind of a bunch of unknowns in the rotation to start the season, and he has been the constant, and that's what you want out of the ace. Go out there every fifth day and give your team the best chance to win. And there's no denying he's done that so far through his first four starts. He has been the best player on the field.
No, and I've been very critical. Oh yeah, well that's what it is. The command on his pitches has been pretty much flawless, and I think that's also a big part of it. But it's also attributed to the pitch clock, which I was very critical of before the season started. And the more I'm watching how it's actually benefited somebody like Cole, where I thought it would have the opposite effect. I thought having him having a rush and not really, having him to change the way he pitches and not being able to kind of think through the at bat. I think the less that these pitchers are thinking, the more beneficial it's becoming. So the pitch clock, I think, like I said, is a big factor to the start we're seeing from Cole.
I love this point from Fortune Express. That's an underrated aspect about Garrett Cole. He's durable.
I mean, well, that's what it is. He's reliable. With all the injuries that we've had throughout the roster, whether it's key guys, bench players, everybody's having something that's kind of nagging on them. Cole has been very consistent with taking the ball every fifth day. And yeah, I think that, I think he is underrated, especially throughout baseball. We saw all the lists where he was really getting snubbed. And I think a lot of that was the whole spite attack thing. I think they were starting to discredit his ability. And he's pretty much starting the season giving everybody two middle fingers. And I'm enjoying every second of it.
He can legit win the Cy Young this year. Started off 4-0. He's got an ERA under 1. It's in the high 90s. That's it. I think it's like 0.99 last time I checked.
0.95, I think.
0.95 now. Unbelievable. So he's under 1. One of the only runs he gave up was the Gleyber Torres error, which I'm surprised wasn't wasn't given as an error, so he was charged that run. But other than that, he's been basically lights out, unhittable. He's got a great partnership with Trevino. I think they work excellently together. Trevino calls a great game behind the plate. And Garrett Cole is executing every one of his pitches. His fastball is absolutely electric. And the location of that fastball is electric. And he's mixing his change up really nicely and his curve. And he's just keeping batters out of rhythm, off balance, and he's just powering past them. At no point yesterday did I think that they were ever going to get a hit off him. Like, he had no hit stuff yesterday. So, like, I can't say enough about Garrett Cole because we so badly needed him, man. Because our bullpen's been blowing games and our bullpen's been overused and Clark Schmidt's been awful and we had an awful last start from Brito and we desperately needed Garrett Cole to really be durable and dearly get us a W, and he did. And not just that, he gave you a complete game shutout. That's like CC Sabathia in 2009 kind of caliber pitching we're seeing right now. So can't say enough about our guy Garrett.
Yeah, no, it's, like FJ says, it's that old school quality of a pitcher, and you don't really get to see that anymore. And I think that he's one of the the last of what we're going to see from that. When you look at pitchers like Cole, Verlander, Scherzer, those guys are going to go to the wayside where you're not going to have those bulldogs that are going to be able to go the distance and give the bullpen a night off. And I think that was the other key to his start was the bullpen really didn't need the day off. It was really relaxing. You didn't have to go into that pen and give everybody a chance to kind of catch their breath, especially after the first two games of the series.
Yeah, I want to talk about Clay Holmes very soon.
Yeah, because my opinion of him is starting to change very, very quickly. But I really, when you're looking at the fact that they didn't have to go to the bullpen. Do you think that with the three guys I mentioned, do you kind of think they're the last of that era, or will we see other pitchers come up that will be able to go complete games?
It's going to happen. Baseball, like I said before on a previous show, has a weird tendency of history repeating itself. So you're going to see other pitchers, whether it can be some minor league kid, come up out of nowhere and throw a complete game. It'll happen at some point, but you look at guys like Cole and you think that's a guy that you want to go at least 7. The days of a starting pitcher going at least 7 are kind of gone. Now you kind of look at 6 as being the max because of pitch counts and everything. But that's another thing that people aren't really talking about. His pitch count was very efficient yesterday. And that's the reason why he was able to go 9, because he was just a shade over 100 at the end of the game. Usually when you get to like the 8th or 9th inning, you're over 100 or you're right at 100. That wasn't the case yesterday. And if you look at his pitch breakdown, he's throwing his 4 main pitches. The cutter is basically gone. He's thrown it twice this year. Twice. He's thrown his 4-seam fastball 220 times.
Woo!
He's going back to his fastball, which is what his best pitch is, and he's locating it, as Donald mentioned. The location's been great. His slider and his curveball, and then he's throwing the changeup when he needs to, but not a lot. So he's not trying to overdo it. He's like, I'm going to throw my best stuff, and it's working. So everything so far, his spin rate is through the roof right now. His fastball spin, 89 percentile. Fastball velocity is 92. And the curve spin is at 81. So he's getting the spin, sticky stuff or not, he's getting it. And that's what people always say, he's relying on Spire Tag. He's relying on this. Well, he's like, I'm not. And he's mad. You can tell he's mad. He might not show it all the time, but the way he scarfed down that banana again yesterday, you can this guy's angry. He's pissed. He wants to shut people up. He's like, how dare you say I'm not top 10 anymore? And right now, he's the best pitcher in baseball. It's like him and Ohtani are like the 2 guys that are under the 1 ERA. So Garrett Cole, so far, it's only 4 starts in, but man, did we need these 4 starts of him. And he's a huge reason we got 10 wins right now. He's got 4 of them.
And here's the difference between him and Ohtani. The Angels are scared of Ohtani pitching against really good teams like the Yankees. But the Yankees need Garrett Cole to pitch every 5th day against the best because he's the guy. So I have him ahead of Ohtani, actually, considerably. I completely agree with you in that aspect, Rob.
Yeah, I don't think that there's really no comparison right now. When you're looking at the start of the season, there's nobody that can compete with Garrett, against Garrett Cole, because he's going to shut it down. He's in his zone this year, and like Rob keeps saying, using the term, he's angry, and I think that this is the Cole that we signed for. This is what we expected when we gave him that monstrous contract.
Another thing that's crazy, I'm sorry, he's breaking records that have been held by guys like Guidry and Ford, and he hasn't been here that long. Yep. He's only been here since 2020, and that was a shortened year. So you think about it, he's had 3 full seasons, not even 2 full seasons, and now he's pitching the first 4 starts of this year, and he's breaking records that are held by Guidry and Ford. I mean, we can bash on him all we want about regular season performances in the past, but there's no question the guy has been well worth the money. There's been some hiccups for sure. And there were times last year we were definitely critical of him, and for good reason. He struggled in a lot of points of the season, but when we needed him the most, he showed up. And right now, even though it's April and you can say what you want about April baseball, we need Garrett Cole to be Garrett Cole. And he has been the best version of Garrett Cole that we've seen so far in a Yankee uniform. And that's scary because he's been really good as a Yankee. So we just got to remember the names that he's surpassing, and he's only been here for a handful of seasons. That's pretty
You're
special.
right. He passed Whitey Ford in the all-time strikeout list.
Yep.
Already.
And he's in the top 100 all time on the strikeout list as well. So he's delivered on all the expectations. Just when you look at the last couple of seasons, the results may not have been there overall. But he's been one. I think the biggest thing is he's been reliable. I think that's been a big part of it. He's showing everybody that, we had the issue with the spine attack. You didn't answer that question right. But it's like, well, you know what? I really don't need it. And maybe it was because of the lockdown with the contract. Maybe that did throw off the routine. So that might be why some guys like him we're not putting up the numbers that were expected.
Still decent numbers, though. And he was great in the playoffs last year. And even his numbers are pretty representable. Last year was his worst year as a Yankee. And despite the home runs, he was pretty darn good for much of the year. So, I think he's been – there's no question he's been worth the money. That's been a very safe investment. He's been more than worth the money. And he's been good in the playoffs. And the Yankees have struggled, but it's never been his fault. It was so cool because he's a bulldog in the mound, but after he pitched the complete game, he was grinning from ear to ear. He was so happy. And he was quite modest as well. He had the opportunity to flex. He didn't at all. He credited Trevino, and he just said that, Minnesota have a really good team, and he really respects Correa and stuff, but, his location was good. That's all he said. He could have been like, I'm here, motherfuckers. I would have, you know what I mean? After the disrespect, because he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He has gotten a little bit of disrespect. One of his own teammates, Josh Donaldson, was obviously prior to him becoming a Yankee, was giving Garrett Cole shit about the spider tack. So Garrett Cole had every opportunity to really kind of give a pointed answer, but he didn't. He's just a modest, happy dude, and he's a bulldog on the mound. But when he's off the mound, he's a really just happy, nice guy, and it's just really fucking cool.
The other thing that's not cool is the way that Holmes has really been struggling in the bullpen. Because I want to get into Holmes a little bit because I did my best to defend him as best I could. And when you're looking at the way that he's just not been able to, he has no command on his pitches at all. He's narrowly escaping all these jams he's putting himself into and just not being as effective as we saw him prior to the injury last year. It might be time to pull that trigger a little earlier than I was hoping and put a different guy in that closer role.
No question. He's not the closer.
Yeah.
Here's the issue with him, and I've discussed this a number of times, is once he loses his location, he can't get it back. He can't get it back without giving up a lot of damage. And that's the problem. And you cannot have that as a closer. You can't have a closer who's relying on only having perfect stuff in order to get guys out. Because if he loses his location, holy God, he's a head case out there. He's walking people, he's hitting people, he's all going all over the backstop. Like, it's a mess. And then suddenly he starts giving up home runs. And, like, for instance, I decided he wasn't our closer when he blew the game against the Royals last August, and it wasn't just because he blew the game, it was the way he blew the game. Because he was very comfortable. He had 2 outs, and I think he was like 2 strikes away from having a perfect inning, and then he started to lose his location. Then he started hitting guys, and then it started to snowball and snowball and snowball, and then suddenly all hell broke loose, and the Yankees ended up losing a game where they were comfortably ahead. And then that's when I realized, oh, no, this guy can't be our closer. And because he did that after the All-Star break, he did that basically the entire rest of the years. Against Cincinnati was the worst. How many people did he hit against Cincinnati, and then he blew the game against them? And like, he was such a mess. And he's been just as bad to start this year. He's not going to be fine, LA. He is not the guy. You might get him an 8th inning guy. He might work as an 8th inning guy, but you need a closer. Like, I think it's Wandy Peralta time. I'm with Fortrain here. It's time the Yankees consider giving Wandy a 100% agree with you there. I think that he should be our closer because at least he throws strikes, and he doesn't induce that much stress that watching this guy does, man. Clay Holmes is just not the guy. I've seen it. I've seen enough Yankee baseball over 3 decades. I know when someone's the guy and someone's not, and he ain't the guy. He's good. Sometimes he's very good. Sometimes he's sensational, but you can't have that as a closer when only sometimes. You need someone who you can rely on to throw strikes, get outs, bish, bash, boss, close the deal. So I think it's Wandy Peralta. I really like Marinaccio, Miguel. I'm with you on that. But whoever they choose, he's your 8th inning guy. He'll get you 8th inning, and then you've still got a chance of coming back in the 9th inning if you've got somebody else. But if he's your last guy, forget about it.
Rob, give us your take.
Yeah, he's puzzling because his stuff is really good. We know that. He was a nobody when we got him, and we turned him into a damn good relief pitcher. And he was breaking records that we haven't seen since Rivera last year. So we were like, that's the closer. And then once he fizzled out, you kind of couldn't put him back in that close role because you saw him in the playoffs. He was fine pitching in like the 7th and the 8th. And you're like, okay, that could be his role. But because we've had already 3 different injuries in the bullpen this year, you really don't have anybody else because they want King to be a multiple inning guy. That's not a closer. You can't really give it to Peralta because he's your only lefty, so you need him for other situations. Now we have righties that can get lefties out. Maybe when Canley's healthy, you can potentially put Peralta in that close role because Canley can get lefties out. But I don't know what you can do right now because we have 3 different relief pitchers that could potentially close games for us on the IL. Loaizaga, Canley, and Trevino. We can't forget he was a closer. So I don't really know what they're going to do. I don't agree with the decision to put him in the 8th inning the other night. Why all of a sudden go to him in the 8th when he's been your 9th inning guy, even though he struggled his last outing? He still got the save. He's been 4 for 4. Why not just keep him there until something goes catastrophically wrong? Don't break it unless it needs to be fixed. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the saying. But you know what I mean. They got to stop shuffling with stuff. But I think it's time to realize you got to find a role for him because his stuff is really good, but it's not the 9th inning because, like you already mentioned, Donald, you need to know that guy's going to go out there, and if he runs into trouble, he's going to get out of it before it's too late. That's what made Rivera so special. That's what made Rafael Soriano so special for that 1 year he was there. That's what made David Robertson so special as a closer.
Andrew Miller.
Even Dylan Betances would get out of those jams. And Aroldis Chapman for a little bit was a guy that would get you out of those jams until he completely just broke down last year and the year prior and the year prior. So they need to figure it out. I don't know if that guy is on the roster right now. That's why I keep going back to it, and I'll keep repeating myself. We should not have gotten rid of Litke, and we should have at least picked up another left-handed reliever because we need one desperately.
Yeah. Well, that goes to FJ's comment here. Do we think Wandy should close without having another southpaw in the pen? And the way I would answer that is now with this, we've had the 3-batter minimum rule for a few years now, and you're not going to just have lefties coming up. You can't just switch for a lefty specialist or a righty specialist. That option of strategy is not available anymore. So I don't think that if you only have one lefty and he's your closer, if he's your best option to end the game, then you go with that option. You don't I'm going to screw up this phrase. Don't cut your nose to spite your face. So if that's your option, and Wandy has been tremendous in the bullpen. We saw it in the postseason last year. He was able to come in at the end of the game and be effective no matter where you put him. Put him in the 9th until some of these guys start coming back off the IL, and then reevaluate where you want to align your bullpen.
Yeah, that's really the only thing we can do. And L.I., I get you. Trust me, I would have loved Soto on this team, but Donald and I were on the same exact wavelength. We mentioned Andrew Chafin several times, and he was available right until the spring started, or I think even a little bit into the spring he was there. So he could have been had. You could have held on to Litke. You didn't need to get rid of him. There were options out there. And Litke was very underrated. He had a rough start last year and then had a really good finish. He was solid. And we could use him right now because he's been reliable the last 2 years. So it's just one extra lefty, and we could potentially put Peralta in that role as a closer. We wouldn't have to worry too much. But right now, I wouldn't do it because you look at him as your only lefty and you like him in certain matchups in the 7th or the 8th. If you wait for him in the 9th, who's going to be that guy? He's not on the roster right now. Until Canley's back, I don't know who it is. I don't know if we have that person on the roster.
Can you imagine how much deeper this team would have been had they, like, for instance, not picked up IKF's option and used that money towards the bullpen, or even traded Aaron Hicks for like a penny on the dollar?
Yeah.
You still be able to move some of that money around to bring in a decent reliever and maybe bulk up some of the backup pitching that we'll need with some of the injuries. And then, we think about the money that we've put into Josh Donaldson, who isn't even an everyday third baseman anymore. You wonder what they could have done with that $20 million. You put like $5 million of that, $6 million of that into Chafin, and they're already better. They don't even need to address anything else other than that. And it's just, that's why it's so mind-boggling, some of the roster decisions that Brian Cashman made in this offseason, and it's coming back to bite us because he's decided to stick with Aaron Hicks, decided to stick with Josh Donaldson, and we don't have any money remaining to move it around and bring in a reliever, bring in a 5th starter to help if Brito's struggling or Schmidt's struggling. And it's mind-boggling roster decisions, really. And that's the only reason why we didn't bring in Chafin, in my opinion, because he was cheap as chips. Just needed to move some of that bad money around.
No, because I think overall they were looking at the depth of the bullpen and came to the decision, whether right or wrong, that they had enough weapons in their bullpen where that wasn't their priority to, bring anybody in. I think what they were really trying to focus on was the left field situation.
They didn't address it, though.
No,
they didn't address it.
Yeah, trying to, the lack of addressing a lot of the issues was a big, complaint from all of us, on all these shows. But I didn't think that the bullpen was that, priority. I thought the left field was. So when they weren't being aggressive to bring anybody to the bullpen, at the time, I wasn't overly concerned.
Well, had they not gotten rid of Litke, I would have completely agreed with you. It's just that second lefty, and I disagree with L.I. completely that Litke sucks. He had a great year last year, all things considered. He pitched 107 games the last 2 years combined. If that's not reliable, I don't know what is. 2.67 last year, 2.74 the year before. That sucks. I'm sorry. And he was not very expensive either. So I disagree with that statement completely, as I disagree with a lot of things he says, but I wouldn't have gotten rid of Licky, especially if you weren't going to add another lefty. Why did you get rid of him? You could have gotten rid of Trevino because he's a free agent at season's end, and you could have cleared his spot and gotten a minor leaguer for him, as good as he was last year. But I don't like getting rid of that second lefty. You need at least two, especially with the uncertainty at the closer position, because Peralta showed you last year in the playoffs he can close, and he can do a really good job at it. Why get rid of your only other lefty?
Well, that's right. I mean, listen, I didn't mind not bringing back Licky, but I actually wrongfully assumed that they were going to address the bullpen at some point in free agency, because it didn't make any sense that they wouldn't. But that's exactly what they've done. They ignored it. Bringing back Canely isn't really the answer, considering he's just coming back from surgery and then he's immediately going to hurt anyway. So, like, it was just really weird roster decisions, because this is a really good team when you look at it. It's just a little bit short in like the back end of the rotation, lefty bullpen, maybe another excellent arm coming out of the bullpen, and then a left fielder, and then you move some of that dead weight around and get rid of it, some of it, maybe free up room for Peraza. This is a hell of a team, excellent team, and it's just weird that they've chosen to double down on guys who aren't good anymore. If you look at Josh Donaldson, there's no way that anyone could say to me that he's better than Peraza. There's no way that Aaron Hicks is better than, well, people that we've even got in AAA right now. AA even. So, like, it's just really hard to even get my mind around the way that this roster has been built. And it all comes down to Brian Cashman. I think Boone's doing the best he can. He's made some mistakes already this year, but I think he's doing the best he can with this situation, with the injuries and the way that he's having to rotate people around, just keep everyone happy. But it all comes down to Brian Cashman again.
Yeah, he goes full throttle for the first mile and then just kind of slows down and doesn't finish the race. That's a big problem of his. Yeah,
you're right. No, speaking of injuries, Tats, lead us into the next.
Yep. So we got our guy Big G ended up with another hamstring issue and is now on the IL. But we were able, the move was to call up Peraza. So at least we're getting a chance to have him brought up.
You won't see him.
Who'd Peraza come up for?
We're not going to
send him right down.
Yeah. See, that's the problem, Tats. If you're paying attention, I don't know where you were at this point. Maybe you're fishing. No, Boone already told us they're not really planning on using Peraza. They're gonna send him right.
Why'd they even fucking bring him up? Why are you wasting his time?
Okay, let me finish.
Right.
As soon as Josh Donaldson is activated, Peraza is being sent back down again. We are treating Peraza like the Scranton shuttle bus. We're treating him like the 26th man. We're treating him like we did with Florial, with Clint Frazier, and Duhar. Even though he's much better than all of them combined, we are treating him that way. We're treating him like the Scranton shuttle bus. We're treating him like a role player, and that's exactly how it is. And they are prioritizing Josh Donaldson. They're prioritizing Aaron Hicks, and that's why it's so infuriating, because it really doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you prioritizing people that are worse than the young guy that you're calling up? That's easily better than both of them. Even though they're playing in a different position, you can still make it work. But they won't do it because they're stubborn. But like the way they're treating Peraza is shameful. I know that they're all in on Volpe, and I completely get that, and I'm behind that. But it doesn't mean that it should be at the expense of finding a way to develop Peraza at the big league level, because he's got it, man. He's got the glove, and he showed last year that he's got a bit of bat around him too. So it doesn't make sense how they're treating him, man. It's just awful. Really bad roster building.
I mean, the one thing that I will say is we don't have anybody else in the 40-man. but it doesn't excuse the fact that they are treating him like just any old regular Joe. That's your number 3 prospect, and you're shuffling him around up and down already. I mean, that's going to hurt his psyche. We saw it happen already plenty of times with different pitchers, with different batters. Most recently, it was Frazier and Andujar and Florial to a degree, but like, I don't get how they're going to do it. Like, why not just, Stanton's not going to be on the IL for 10 days. He never is. It's going to be at least a month, so you can't really 60-day IL him, but there is nobody else in the 40-man because of all the injuries. So they can't, unless they drop someone, and they're not going to do that yet because they would have done it by now. So IKF ain't going anywhere yet. Hicks ain't going anywhere yet. He was the only guy to call up, but I still don't agree with the fact that you're treating him as just any old player. Why call him up for 2 days? Just sit him on the bench. Call up another pitcher then, if that's the case. Get Garcia up here for 2 days. Maybe he can give you some length out of the bullpen. I don't know if there's still a limit on the batters and pitchers, but I don't agree with it. At the very least, play him for the 3 days that he would have been here. And then if he played really well, you'd be like, okay, we have something to think about here. But to sit him on the bench, this is why I was hoping things would be different with Brian Sabian, but it seems so far it's not. But again, when you look at our 40-man roster, everyone is on the IL or is currently up. So he was the only offensive player they could call up. It's just a shame that he's number 3
You're
player.
You're right, but the thing is, the Yankees don't want a situation where he plays really well for those 3 days because they don't want to have that decision.
That's why they're not
They don't want to have to make that decision. They don't want to have to answer to the fan base why they are prioritizing dudes that haven't been good in 5 years over someone who's one of the top 100 prospects in all of baseball right now. They don't want to answer that question. So they don't want that heat. So they'd rather send down Peraza and just make it look like this was all the plan all along. It's not. They're just kind of just riding by the seat of their pants. Fortune Express is basically saying exactly what I said a minute ago. He's going to end up like Florial and Duke and Frazier, even though he's better than all of them combined, because it does affect his confidence. Unless he's a robot, it's going to affect your confidence. I mean, why would you want to be sat on the bench for 2 days at the big league level and then sent back down to Scranton on the shuttle bus again and just wait for the next injury and it'll be shuttled back up, sit on the bench again, and shuttle back down again? Like that worked for that worked for Frazier, like that worked for Andujar, like that worked for Florial. Did it work for them? No. So why should it work for Peraza?
Oh, it's that's why FJ put it out. He thinks Peraza is going to be traded, and he doesn't see them as a part of the future. We heard the statements from Cashman beginning during the spring training that he sees Volpe and Peraza as the pieces to the middle of the infield for the future.
I think it was Hal Steinbrenner said that.
Is that Hal? So if you're gonna have a statement like that, why it really pisses me off that they're going to waste this kid, another kid that they're gonna start playing these stupid mind games with.
Well, I think Glaber has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Plans can change. Look, I don't like the way they're treating Peraza, but right now the best thing to do is trade him. If you can get some, maybe they should have explored the Pablo Lopez thing again. Maybe they should have done that because he's not getting you. I don't care what anyone says. He's not getting you Brian Reynolds, so that needs to stop. If you could have moved him in the offseason, but obviously they wanted to see how the spring played out. Nobody anticipated Volpe playing the way he did. The Yankees probably thought we were going to go with IKF and Peraza as the shortstops, and then Volpe would come up eventually. But Volpe forced their hand. So now your best bet, you might have to trade him. And I don't want to. I still think there's a place for him in the future. But if Gleyber Torres has a season the way he's been playing, and if he finishes with a year similar to last year statistically, offensively and defensively, you might think about an extension for him because he's already proven to be a good major league player where you're hoping Peraza can do the same. Maybe it's best that Peraza gets flipped elsewhere and you can get another pitcher because next year we're going to have more rotation questions when Sevy's gone because there's no way they bring him back. And who knows who like the 4 and 5 starters are going to be. So maybe you try to trade for a younger arm. The Marlins have plenty of arms. We know they like Peraza. So they might have to do it. But I still think they should try to find a spot for him. But he's only going to play short or second because Boone said it yesterday they don't envision him playing third. So before he chimes in and says third base again, it's not happening. And that's really the only other thing they can do is try him out at third. They're not going to do that. So where is he playing? That's the big question. And they're not playing him. They're calling him up to sit him on the bench just for Josh Donaldson, which is a terrible decision. But again, we know why Donaldson's still here because financially it doesn't make sense to cut him yet. Not until next year. So you have no choice. They had no choice but to call him up because you needed the extra offensive player and there's nobody else. But the fact that you're not going to play him, or even if they play him tomorrow because we're off today, and then you sit him Tuesday or you sit him Wednesday and then Donaldson's back. So he's going to play one game. Just doesn't make sense to me.
No. It's terrible. But it's so bad about Stanton. Such a shame about Stanton.
He's been really effective this year.
Great this year. Grade 2, you're probably looking at 4 weeks, maybe even 6. It's bad news because that means we're going to see a piss load of Aaron Hicks. And not to go back into the whole Aaron Hicks thing, we know he's bad. He's terrible. He's an embarrassment. But if you look at the stats, statistically, he's not even a major league player, man. He's batting 120. I don't even think he's got an extra base hit yet. And his OPS is like 300, and 900 is pretty much what you're wanting. It's like average. So he's so vastly below average. It's absolutely criminal. And he struck out. He was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts yesterday. He looked absolutely garbage, complete trash. And we're going to see him a lot now with Stanton being hurt for 4 to 6
No,
weeks.
I think it gives a more of a lifeline for Cordero to get more play time. I think that's what we're going to see, because we were trying to figure out who gets cut when Donaldson gets back, like as guys were coming back. So with Bader coming back and Donaldson, you had Stanton now going onto the IL, and we know his track history with the IL. It's never just 10 days. Especially with a grade 2. So that might extend the life of Cordero on this roster.
Well, it should. I mean, Calhoun's not going to be here.
Yeah.
We know when Donaldson's back Wednesday, Peraza's getting sent down. And then if Bader's back within the next week or so, it's probably Calhoun. And there's your roster, I guess, unless they make another move. Aaron Hicks has to go, but he's going to keep surviving. IKF's going to survive another round. So the only thing we have to look forward to is when Stanton does get healthy, who's playing well. If Cordero is still hitting home runs for you, you're not going to cut him yet unless he can, because he's gone cold a little bit the last few games. So if that continues, then all right, it was a fun week, but I still think he's going to provide you some pop. So we know who it should be. Look, we know who should be cut from this roster. They're just not going to do it. And he shouldn't, even with Stanton hurt, he shouldn't be finding his way into the outfield rotation. It should be Cabrera, Cordero, and Donaldson DHing before we put Aaron Hicks in the lineup. Donaldson should be your DH. DJ should play third. It's that simple. And then when you need to give DJ a day off, you can put Donaldson back at third. You can DH LeMahieu for all I care. Or you can DH Cordero and have an outfield of Judge and Calhoun until we get Bader back. There's no reason, even with this injury to Stanton, that Hicks should be playing.
Yeah,
Rob, question. Is Chaparro on the 40-man?
No.
I don't think he is.
Can we make a movement, get him on the 40-man, and call him up because he's been killing it?
Yeah, you get rid of Hicks and you.
That's the only option is you can cut Hicks, you can cut IKF because they provide you nothing. Well, IKF gives you defense, but at the same time, Chaparro really just offers you a bat, which we kind of need right now to replace.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, if the fact that they didn't call him up tells me, no, he's not on the 40-man. So the only plays they can get rid of are IKF and Hicks. The only other player on the 40-man is Pereira, and we know they're not calling him up.
No.
Let's see what Chaparro's been doing lately.
His name I don't even think his name will come up till next spring. Is when we might see more from Pereira. But I feel bad for Peraza because we've seen this so many times before and it never goes well for the player. So it's really it's frustrating.
I think he's got 6 home runs. Chaparro already in AAA.
They could give him a shot. They just stop playing all these guys that provide you nothing, right? It's 2 of them, Hicks and Ikea. And then Calhoun can be the third, because let's leave Donaldson out of the equation. He's not going anywhere. You can make room for guys like Chaparro and Elijah Dunham if you want to look at the way he's played in AAA so far. I still think it's a little too early, but he's also like 24, 25, and he's had some really good years in the minors, so maybe you give him a shot. But they can make room for Chaparro if they needed that bat. But they're going to look at Donaldson to be that guy. They're going to say, well, we can hope Donaldson can run into a few the way Stanton has, and maybe he can. I don't think he will, but maybe he has a solid week or two while Stanton's hurt. And you're like, all right, he at least did something. But the bottom line is Hicks should not be playing nearly as much as people think. If they put him in the lineup again because of Stanton's injury, even with the injury, he's still like the third guy that you want in left field right now. That's how much even Calhoun's outplayed him. He's only been here for like a week.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I could outplay him.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think that Donaldson should be your everyday DH at this point. This way, LeMahieu stays in third. And let's also say how LeMahieu just came back after getting those few days off. He came back into the lineup and was effective right away. There was no, a couple of bats. Maybe he's still not right. LeMahieu is just gonna. That's why he's called the machine, because he is just unbelievable at on this team. I think the Yankees are really lucky that they have a player like him.
I think it's a difference in philosophy, but a lot of baseball have moved on from this idea. But Brian Cashman keeps trying really hard to stick with it, and that's to try and bring back and revitalize the careers of 37-year-olds, 38-year-olds, or mid-30s with injury history, and look at the back of the baseball card as if that's going to automatically translate to what's going to happen in 2023. And that's where he's always gotten wrong. Basically over the last decade, this is a Brian Cashman thing, man. If you look at the moves that he made like in 2013, 2015, 2014, and then it was finally 2017, he's like, oh shit, right, this is clearly not working. Let's go to the young guys. And then guess what? Almost got us to a World Series. But then he ran into his same old problems again, bringing back Josh Donaldson, continually trying to beat the dead horse that is Aaron Hicks. And that's the thing, man. When you got people in AAA who are like in their mid-20s, you've got upside there. There's no upside with Josh Donaldson at 37, 38. He isn't going to find that bat speed that he had. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. Not at that age. Aaron Hicks, he's been injured and he's been bad for 5 years. You think suddenly magically he's going to get the magic elixir of life, and then suddenly he's going to get his bat speed back of 6 years ago? And that's where he continues to make this mistake. Like, remember we brought back when he signed Carter, when he signed Tulowitzki, when he signed Holiday, when he signed all these dudes who were like 30-ish and past it and done and dusted and finished. But he keeps trying to bring them back, that magically they're gonna bring back the kind of years that they had in their prime. That's why it's called your prime. When you're past your prime, you suddenly get your prime back. Now, maybe you did in the 90s when you're on steroids, but steroids doesn't happen anymore. So you can't do it anymore. And the rest of baseball cottoned on. The Braves, the Astros, they're more than happy to move on from you once you've reached the 30 stage and you're like, you're not going to get that kind of bat speed back. I'm going to go younger. I'm going to try and develop upside. But the Yankees are like, no. I'm riding this Aaron Hicks thing right to the end. And same with Josh Donaldson. And it makes no sense. You've got guys like Dunham. You guys got like Chaparro. You've got Peraza. You've got dudes that are ready to rock and roll if you give them a shot. But you won't do it.
With Cashman, he's made a lot of mistakes. He's had ups and downs throughout his career. All right, I think it could be a 50-50 wash. You're either for him or you're against him, and it's hard to change the other person's mind. So but now he has the opportunity to really win over some of the haters by making the cuts that need to be cut. Money be damned. You're gonna have to pay the money anyway. And it's not like you're cutting a $25 million contract like Donaldson. And if you're gonna use that to play, Peraza, right? Say they decide to keep him up. What are you paying Peraza that's really gonna affect your bank even more? So I don't think that money should be a factor at all when it comes to having to just release some of these guys.
The only
Steve, you're a genius. Yes, I am left-handed. I don't know how you managed to figure that out with the hat thing, but rock and roll. You're a genius.
The only player that the money kind of correlates to is Donaldson, because again, it makes more sense to wait to cut him, because then you're going to pay him more if you cut him now, and it just doesn't make sense to pay him more when you can wait it out a year. But in the terms of Aaron Hicks, there's no out in the next year or two. They'd be like, let's wait. You should just cut him now because he's not providing anything. You pay him $30 million not to play for you. That's it. And IKF, it's $6 million, and someone would probably take him in a trade. Someone would probably give you a little something for IKF. No one's going to give you a single thing for Aaron Hicks, but you can get something back for IKF. You can eat the money with Aaron Hicks. They ate the money for A-Rod. They ate the money for technically for Ellsbury. They can do it for Aaron Hicks. They did it with Ellsbury. I think we had 2 years left when they decided to let him go. 2-3 years left. So if they did it with Ellsbury for more money, they can do it with Hicks for far less. So,
well, actually, you're right. Cashman does have a clear disdain for the Yankee fans, but this is not actually me wanting him to capitulate to fans' wishes. I'm actually just wanting him to go with the trend of where baseball's heading right now.
Yeah, it's just making the right move.
It's heading towards younger. Go with your youth. Go with the upside rather than continuing to try and retread these mid-30s guys. That's kind of more my point. And I actually agree with him not to listen to his Yankee fans because, he'll know better than fans in general. But other teams that do that just to cater to what their fans' wishes, they tend to go wrong. The Mets have done that for decades, right? And it doesn't work out for them. So I'm not saying that he capitulates to Yankee fans' demands. What I'm saying is I just want him to go where the trend of baseball is. And the trend of baseball is to go younger and go with upside and move money around smartly rather than just double and triple down on dudes that just don't have it anymore.
Yeah, we brought up Chaparro earlier, Miguel, and he's not on the 40-man, so there would have to be some moves that would be made to get him, up here. But it goes to what ties into what we were saying with just cut your losses with Hicks, even IKF. If you don't want to get rid, if you don't want to spend the 30 to get rid of Hicks, spend the 6 to get rid of IKF, and bring up one of these other kids. So
now I know why Rob was physically squinting.
You didn't catch that?
I was like, what's the hell I said now? There he goes. Just only the dude that won you the game yesterday, offensively. Yeah, let's trade him. That's a great.
It was right on cue too, right as you said. Brian Cashman knows better than most fans, and then that came up. I'm like, yeah, perfect time.
Yeah. So I mean, you understand why Cashman doesn't listen to a lot of the fans. But you know what? Cashman was right about Cordero. Franchi Cordero is a very smart pickup, and that's what I'm talking about. Go with the upside. No one rated this. No one really knew, but he had a bit of upside, and Cashman gave him a chance, and he's been absolutely devouring the ball, eating it for breakfast. So that's what I'm talking about upside. Cashman already has the evidence right there. Move on from Aaron Hicks and give a shot to like a Chaparro. Why not?
And Cashman could have dug, he could have dug in his bag of tricks for an excuse not to have Volpe on the opening day roster and wait out the service.
Yeah.
So let's give Cashman credit for that, for reading the room and knowing, okay, if I don't start this kid now, it's gonna have a bad optic on the organization. And he already has enough bad optics with the Three Stooges. So, but of the Three Stooges, Donaldson's the least of, I think, because he's still effective defensively. I don't think he's more of the damaging of the three. I think IKF, who has been reliable, he's not a superstar, but you can depend on him.
Yeah, he's fine.
Hicks he's got to be thrown off the cliff.
Oh yeah, please! I'd be the first one to do it. The biggest storyline I want to talk about this Stanton thing, right? And I guess we can close with it. Is doesn't that kind of fly in the face of all this Yankee load management? Considering Stanton was rested multiple times prior to his injury, Josh Donaldson was actually rested a day or two prior to his injury too. Don't you think that it's kind of now almost academic now that this load management in April doesn't work, considering maybe sitting them and then bringing them back out again, and then sitting them and bringing them back out again might actually do your muscles in. You know, it's possible. Maybe you actually you're better getting in a rhythm, playing every day, getting your body used to being used every day, rather than up, down, up, down, up, down. And then maybe that's why you're pulling a hamstring. It's happened to Josh Donaldson. It's happened to Stanton. I'm wondering. Specifically Stanton. Yeah. I'm wondering whether this load management is actually a crock of bullshit and there's no need to do it. Play your guys every day unless they knock on the door saying I need a rest.
Yeah, that's the first thing I actually said because I popped in there towards the end of the game when Sats was streaming it. And when Stan got pinch ran for, I was like, I hope he's not hurt because it looked weird. I was like, why are they pinch running for him in a 6-1 game? And I was like, I just hope it's just to get a little speed. But no, I felt I didn't want to even say it because I didn't want to bring some bad negative energy to the stream. But I was like, I think he's hurt because you don't see him get – and the way he got pulled, it wasn't like all right, it was like just a pinch run. He didn't look very thrilled. It looked like something went wrong because he thought it was a home run. So he had to like hit into a second gear. He was doing a home run trot, and then all of a sudden he's running for second. He pulled something. And this is what we keep talking about for the last 3 years of doing this show. Play him in the field, and he's not going to get hurt as much because DHing him is killing this guy, literally. All of his injuries are happening from base running. They're not happening from playing defense. He's a better player when he plays the field every day. Is he the greatest outfielder in the world right now? No. But that's why you put him specifically in right field, at least in the Bronx, so you can have him play less space or man less space, depending on where you're playing. I don't know why they keep doing this. Every single year that he's gotten hurt, and it's been an injury that's put him on the shelf, it hasn't been because of defense. Every single time, it's not from defense. So once again, you're absolutely right. Everything that they believe in, it's getting proven wrong with the amount of injuries that we have every single year. So you can load manage all you want. Players are still going to get hurt. DJ got hurt, and they tried to sit him. Stanton's getting hurt, and they've been DHing him or playing him in the outfield. Just play him. Just play him until he needs a day. And then you just keep him off the field completely unless you need him to pinch hit. But this whole idea of let's put him DH, let's put him in right, let's put him in left, it's not working. And it hasn't worked, and they still don't learn from their mistakes.
And like the A's are not making any moves. Right? They're looking to relocate, and they're going to want youth to re-inject the A's into baseball wherever they get moved to. So no, they're not moving anybody.
What is this? Hold on. You want to get rid of Arias, Gomez, Dunham. So you want to attach 3 prospects. You want to give away 5 players, 3 extra prospects to get rid of 2 players for anybody. Just for a random player. This is why every time you say Brian Cashman is a bottom 5 GM, I laugh at you. Because if you were the GM, you wouldn't be a GM of a team in I don't even want to say Japan. Because there's probably GMs in Japan that would be a lot better than you. That is a terrible idea.
Why would the A's want to take on $30 million plus of salary and be on the hook for Aaron Hicks multiple years when they don't want any salary at all? That's the thing, man. They don't want any salary. They want tank-tastic, baby. Now, obviously, bringing in Aaron Hicks is perfect for their tank-tastic philosophy, but they don't want any veterans and they don't want any money and big contracts involved. They just don't want any of that. No, they want young prospects. They just want to tank in obscurity and then get their move to Las Vegas. But this is not, this isn't like NBA.com where you move the salaries or NBA 2K 2023, when you can move salaries around and off you go. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. It's not MLB The Show. Like I'm sorry, man. That's not how it's gonna work, man. It's not. They're not gonna take on $30 million plus when the A's have been gotten rid of much better players over the last year or two because they didn't want to pay them at all, like Chapman, this, that, and the other. They don't want to take on salary.
Minaya, Montas. How many players have they traded in the last 2 years because they didn't want to pay them $9 million? Now you want to give them $25 million of Donaldson, 10 each year of Hicks, and then you want to give them 3 prospects to do it? It's like your Corbin trade. You're like, oh, I'll give them prospects along with it to take on Patrick Corbin's ridiculous contract. Nobody's taking those guys and the prospects. The money doesn't work, especially with a team like Oakland. None of those prospects you listed besides Arias, and we don't even know what he's going to be yet, have like this amazing upside. You're like, yeah, we'll take on $35 million of 2 really bad declining players.
Yeah, right. Oh.
I mean, you're going to have to attach guys like Peraza to if you wanted to do anything like that, and they're not going to do it. You know, Hal is not going to move Peraza. He already put his neck out for him, saying that he's going to be the future of this team. You know, we weren't expecting to start from Torres, which made, change opinions in the front.
Well, I mean, if we attach Peraza to just get rid of Hicks and Josh Donaldson and go nothing in return, fans would be in uproar. This is terrible, terrible baseball management. So, like, this isn't even worth getting into. This is just a really bad trade, and you got to do better, LI.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good spot to wrap it up on, or it goes completely off the rails. But we do want to thank everybody for hanging out in the chat. LI, FJ, Mazza, and as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And wear your pinstripes, your pride, and play hard.